Washington, March 30th, 1981. 6 shots are fired at the President of the United States in less than 2 seconds. One of them hits Ronald Reagan. The bullet breaks a rib, punctures his lung, and stops just inches from his heart. Inside the hospital, doctors are preparing for emergency surgery. Everything suggests this could be the end. But as Reagan is being rushed into the operating room, he looks at the surgeons and says something unexpected. Not fear, not panic, a joke. A sentence so strange for that moment that people will remember it for decades. But to understand why he said it, you have to see what happened just minutes earlier. Just minutes before the shooting, everything looked routine. Reagan had just finished speaking at the Washington Hilton Hotel. It was a controlled event, short speech, secure location, standard Secret Service presence. Nothing out of place. Outside, a small crowd had gathered, reporters, photographers, and people waiting for a quick glimpse of the president. The plan was simple. Walk out, wave, get into the car, leave. The distance to the limousine was only a few meters, just a few seconds in the open. And that was the weak point, because inside that crowd stood a man holding a cheap revolver. Not a trained assassin, not a professional, someone with a very different and very unstable reason to pull the trigger. And no one around him realized it. Reagan steps out of the Washington Hilton Hotel and begins walking toward the limousine. It's just a few meters across an open area. Secret Service agents are watching the crowd closely, especially the group of reporters standing near the exit. Cameras, microphones, notepads, everything looks normal. But inside that group stands a young man in a light coat. In his pocket, a small revolver loaded with unusual ammunition. No one pays attention to him. Then suddenly, movement. He raises his arm, and in less than 2 seconds, 6 shots are fired. The sound is fast, sharp, almost blending together. It doesn't feel like separate shots. It feels like one violent burst. For a fraction of a second, people freeze. Then chaos. Agents react instantly. One grabs Reagan and throws him into the limousine. Others turn toward the shooter. The crowd surges forward. People push, fall, scream. The attacker is slammed against the wall and buried under bodies, agents and civilians on top of him. But it's already too late, because one of those bullets did not miss. At first, no one realizes that Reagan has been shot. The agents believe they reacted in time. They push him into the limousine, force him down, and the car speeds away. From the outside, it looks like everything is under control. But inside the car, something is wrong. Reagan tries to speak, but his voice is weak. He struggles to breathe. Then he starts coughing. And that's when it becomes clear. There is blood, bright red, foaming at his lips, a sign that the lung has been hit. Agent Jerry Parr sees it immediately. Everything changes in that second. Hospital, George Washington Hospital, now. The driver accelerates harder. Only then do they understand what really happened. The bullet didn't hit Reagan directly. It struck the limousine first, then ricocheted, deflected into a new angle, and entered his body through a narrow gap, breaking a rib, piercing his lung, stopping just centimeters from his heart. A random trajectory that almost killed the president. The limousine reaches George Washington Hospital in just a few minutes. Doctors are already waiting. Everything is prepared for an emergency. From the outside, Reagan still looks in control. Conscious, focused. The car door opens, and instead of being carried out, he steps out on his own. Slow, controlled, supported by agents, but still walking. For a brief moment, it creates a powerful illusion that he is stable, that everything might be under control. Then, just before entering the hospital, he does something unexpected. He adjusts his jacket, closes a button, straightens his posture. He doesn't want to be seen as weak. A final gesture, almost like an actor stepping into a scene. But the moment he crosses the doors, Everything collapses. His lung is filling with blood. Oxygen is dropping fast. His knee buckles. His body gives out. He collapses into the arms of the agents. Doctors rush forward, and now they see it. His lips are turning blue. The brain is losing oxygen. This is no longer controlled. This is critical. Inside the hospital, everything moves at maximum speed. Doctors rush Reagan into the operating room. Equipment is prepared. Commands are short, precise. Every second matters. The president is losing blood. His lung is damaged. Breathing is unstable. Surgery must begin immediately. And yet, in that exact moment, Reagan does something no one expects. As he is placed on the operating table, he looks at the surgeons and speaks. Calm, controlled. "I hope you're all Republicans." For a second, the room pauses. Then one of the surgeons answers without hesitation. "Today, Mr. President, we all are." The tension breaks. Even now, seconds before surgery, he chooses humor, not to ignore the danger, but to face it. And just hours later, when his wife Nancy arrives, he looks at her and quietly says, "Honey, I forgot to duck." Even after everything, he is still himself. The surgery lasts for several hours. Inside the operating room, every movement is controlled and precise. The bullet is lodged deep inside Reagan's chest, dangerously close to a major artery. One mistake could cause catastrophic bleeding. Finding the bullet is not easy. It is small, deformed from impact, hidden in damaged tissue. For a moment, surgeons struggle to locate it exactly. Time is critical. Reagan continues to lose blood. His condition becomes unstable. Blood pressure drops. Oxygen levels fall. For a brief moment, the situation turns critical, but the team keeps working. Slow, focused, methodical. They finally locate the bullet and carefully remove it. Flattened from the impact, it had stopped just centimeters from a fatal point. Closer, and survival would have been almost impossible. After hours of work, the surgery is complete. Reagan is alive, not because it was easy, but because everything worked at the exact moment it needed to. In the days that follow, the entire country watches closely. At first, updates are cautious. Doctors avoid strong predictions. Reagan is stable, but still in danger. The situation could still change at any moment. But slowly, he begins to recover. And with that, something unexpected happens. Public reaction shifts dramatically. This is no longer just a medical story. It becomes something bigger. A president who was seconds away from death, who walked into the hospital on his own, who joked before surgery, and survived. His approval ratings rise sharply, but more importantly, his image changes from a political leader to a symbol of resilience. The attack was meant to weaken him. Instead, it made him stronger. And the man who pulled the trigger, John Hinckley Jr., begins to fade from the story. Because history remembers something else, the moment, and how it was faced. At this point, the story feels complete. A president is shot. He survives. The country watches in shock, but then the most disturbing question appears. Why? Why would someone open fire on the President of the United States in broad daylight? Politics would be the obvious answer. Ideology would make sense. Hatred of government, power, or policy, all of that sounds logical. But in this case, none of it truly fits. The man who pulled the trigger, John Hinckley Jr., was not trying to take control of history. He was trying to get the attention of actress Jodie Foster. Hinckley had become deeply obsessed with her. He watched the film Taxi Driver again and again, identifying with its disturbed main character. He wrote Foster letters, tried to contact her, tried to make himself impossible to ignore. And when fantasy stopped feeling enough, he chose violence, not for politics, not for strategy, for attention. That is what makes this story so unsettling. It was not driven by ideology. It was driven by obsession. In the end, this story is not just about an assassination attempt. It is about how close the United States came to a completely different future. A bullet changes direction by chance. An agent reacts in seconds. A hospital decision is made at exactly the right moment, and because of that chain of reactions, Ronald Reagan survives. But remove just one detail, one delayed movement, one missed sign, one slower decision, and the ending changes completely. That is what makes this story so powerful, not just the violence, not just the survival, but the terrifying fragility of the moment itself. The man who attacked Reagan was not a mastermind. He was not part of a grand political conspiracy. He was one unstable person standing in a crowd with a revolver and a delusion, and yet he came within inches of changing history. So the real question is not only how Reagan survived, it is how thin the line was between survival and national tragedy. Sometimes history turns not on big plans, but on seconds, instincts, and pure chance.